report from the Director of Planning.
We'll receive and file that weekly report. From there, we will go to item number 9. If you could read that into the record.
Sure. Councilman, item 9 is an appeal by Alberto Avila. He's representing Top Gun Nightclub Group, and this is relative to a revocation of the use of the nightclub located at 6757 through 6763 West Hollywood Boulevard in CD 13.
All right. We have cards from the appellant, Mr. Richard Kaladzi. I'm probably saying your name wrong, so if you could be so kind as to correct me. The appellant will have 5 minutes, and the applicant will have 5 minutes. And I don't see an applicant card in front of me at this moment.
I'm Michael Kaladzi.
Michael Kaladzi?
Yeah, I don't know where you got the Richard from, but you got the last part right, which works. So.
What did I say, Richard?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Councilmember, for the record, the applicant in this case is the City of Los Angeles, so the staff will be presenting during
Perfect.
their
Perfect. So we'll hear from the appellant, then the city? Perfect. You got it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'll be very short and brief. Again, my name is Michael Kaladzi. I represent the appellants in the situation. In this matter, Alberto Avila and Top Gun Nightlife Group, Inc., doing business as the Cashmere Nightclub, also doing business as the Day After Nightclub. In concurrence with my previous arguments made on the record at the original revocation hearing on October 22nd, 2015, for the department to approve a revocation of the CUP prior to any and all the criminal citations and or allegations being adjudicated in the criminal court system, I believe is a serious and very dangerous precedent. It's essentially a denial of due process. There are currently 5 different case numbers that relate to Cashmere Nightclub. And just to be brief, I'll go ahead and recite them. It's 5CA 14696, 5CA 14680, 5CA 15767, 5CA 14100, and finally 5CA 15614. Those are all still in the court system. Indeed, the next hearing date is April 20th of 2015. Jackie Lawson is a special prosecutor on that. She's here in the audience. She'll concur with me. So essentially, to pass judgment on my client prior to my client having their day in court is essentially a denial of due process. We made those arguments. Director went ahead and disavowed it, went ahead and rendered judgment. I told him I'd vigorously appeal, and that's what we're doing. Indeed, the denial of my client's due process rights will respectfully not be tolerated and will be litigated vigorously. Accordingly, I'm respectfully requesting a stay of any and all determination as to revocation pending the disposition of the criminal court cases. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have cards from the city. I have someone from Hollywood Vice, and I have someone from Building and Safety. Which person is it?
So perhaps it would be better to do the staff response and then do the speaker cards following that portion of the appeal hearing.
So there's no applicant for 5 minutes?
The applicant is the city zoning administrator.
So that was my question. I have a few cards from people who work for the city.
I think the city attorney is trying to say is let the planning department present a report first, Councilman.
Okay.
Good afternoon, honorable committee member. My name is Jack Jones, zone administrator on the revocation case. What I have before you is a revocation for Cashmere Nightclub. Cashmere Nightclub was approved back in April 5th, 2013 as a restaurant slash with a dancing and live entertainment. However, the applicant and operator has been using this restaurant as a nightclub, not as a restaurant. And during the past 3 years, there used to be time that the premises was used as a strip bar as well. So the prior use leading to complaints and allegation, and the police and to the LAPD. Then the LAPD had to make an investigation, and through the years of investigation, evidence was shown that the applicant was not complying to the conditional use permit condition. There used to be a 49 condition, and I would say that perhaps half of them were not being complied to, and the other half were basically administrative conditions. So technically, the applicant were not complying with any of the condition. This leads to the nuisance abatement action. Planning staff has investigated the case and shows that there's absolutely no documentation that the applicant has complied to any operating conditions. And there are conditions that I can read to you just into the record. The basic condition compliance, condition number 48, 45, 37 were not complied, and also the basic operation condition not comply with the condition number 2, use the development of the property and not complying to the plot plan is submitted. And also condition number 7, outdoor patio were not closed after 10 p.m. And condition number 8, the project has not been maintained the premises with the assigned seating. And condition number 23, the posting of license were not on site. And condition number 26, there are line queuing on the Hollywood Boulevard. And condition number 7, condition number 31, there are noise being emitted from the premises, including patio. And condition 32, the applicant shows no effort of controlling the necessary noise mitigation. And condition 35, there is no 24 hotline. And condition 42, there is no remaining quiet sign. And condition number 9, applicant allowed patrons under the age of 21 into the nightclub. And condition number 11, there is the operator is serving alcohol beverage on the dance floor. And condition number 18, there is no full operating kitchen and menu. Condition 19, the primary business of the establishment is sale of the food, where the premises is serving alcohol, not the food as a primary offering item. And condition number 20, there's no outside promoter, and an operator consistently lease the area to outside promoter. And condition number 21, dancing shall be restricted to the dance floor and not outside patio. And operator violate this condition, and consistently dancing occurred on the outdoor patio, which create the noise impact to the surrounding residents. And condition number 22, the operator has not obtained the necessary live music, entertainment, dance permits from LAPD. And lastly, condition number 43, there is absolutely no electronic age verification device on site. So technically, the mode and character for this premises, for the business, is a restaurant, not as nightclub. However, the operator has changed the mode and character into a nightclub, and worst case, a strip club. There are incidents where the promoter promotes under 21 nightclub. So the operator is violating ABC and a conditional use permit by serving alcoholic beverage to patrons under the age of 21. The operator also hire underage employee on site. So there is this DJ that's under age of 20. working on the premises and who were shot by the firearm. And this was a murder case that happened within the last six months, and further leads to the revocation of this case. The finding in the report can be made. This project is detrimental to the nearby community. This project is also not compliant to the community plan, the general plan, and the city code. And the city will definitely have to revoke this project so that it will not continue an egregious violation of the conditional use permit. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff members? Seeing none, I'll call Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, good afternoon. I am here to testify on item number 9, the revocation of permits appeal, and I hope you will deny the appeal. I strongly urge that you deny the appeal for the following reasons. Zoning Administrator Chang gave a few details. I'm going to give a few more. On August 22nd, an underage 20-year-old DJ at Kashmir died while working at the club under circumstances that are still under investigation. But what we do know is that it was eyewitnesses in the club who are the ones who notified authorities, and not anyone who was employed by the club at the time, nor the management. The very next day, Kashmir opened as though nothing had occurred. The very next day. They have since continued to operate with impunity, and this is going back 6 months ago now. As of early October of last year, Kashmir had been cited for 18 violations of their their operating permit in the previous 4 months. So from July to October, they had 18 violations of their operating permit. Now, this is in addition to several assault claims and criminal justice allegations filed by the LAPD, including sexual assault in Kashmir nightclub. Neither the DJ, the young man Jose Silva's death, nor the numerous operating permit violations, nor the various assault and criminal allegations caused Kashmir to alter their operating hours, nor did it alter their determination to stay open and simply lie about the documented circumstances associated with the operation of the club. They were, however, motivated to change the name of their club, but nothing else, and continued to try operating exactly the same way they always have. And I think that when the LAPD comes up here, they'll talk about additional violations since this tragic death that happened by the underage employee who should not have been there in the first place. The incidents at Kashmir exposed the city's fecklessness in bringing rogue nightclubs into operating permit compliance, and they serve as an example of the brazenness of some club operators. This is a little worse because they were supposedly a restaurant, but some club operators to thumb their nose at the very notion of following the law and providing safety and security for their employees and patrons. This is such a location. It is time to close the book on Kashmir, or whatever alias name they have been going by recently, revoke all their permits to operate once and for all. It's a privilege to do business anywhere in the city. It's a privilege to do business in Hollywood and trade on the Hollywood brand. And this type of operator that flagrantly thumbs their nose at everything that is good in society just so they can open and stay open and keep the cash flowing and just violate their operating permits day after day after day is exactly what's giving Hollywood a bad reputation. And I hope that we don't stop at Kashmir. I hope we continue this track and bring other nightclubs into compliance who are out of compliance and provide a much shorter window than what we have in this particular instance. And I hope no one else has to be injured or die on the job because of the woefully inadequate ability for the managers and owners of this establishment to properly run their business. So I urge you to deny the appeal for Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, for attending today and your insightful and heartfelt testimony today. I have John Whipple from LADBS.
Good afternoon, members. My name is John Whipple. I work with the Code Enforcement Bureau for the Department of Building Safety. I also inspected that location on September 12th, 2015 at about 1:30 in the morning. I observed many of the same violations that have also been mentioned here, but more specifically, I addressed some of the construction violations I observed out there. They had a approximately 150-foot long awning that was built without a permit. They also had several interior code violations, and in my 15-minute inspection or half-hour inspection, I'm sure I only got the tip of the iceberg on it, but there was a hazardous condition where there was an ice maker that had electrical parts exposed to the employees that were working there. They had electrical outlet covers that were exposed to electrical wiring there as well. And my observation when I first walked in there is that I reviewed the Exhibit A, I guess it's called, which is what shows the dance floor locations and the number of seats, et cetera, in that location. And when I walked in there, there was at least 100 of them removed. And they're not supposed to drink on the dance floor, and there's just people drinking all over the place. The floor was littered with drinks, empty drinks. It was wet with alcoholic beverages, and it was very apparent to me that they changed it from a restaurant to nothing but a drinking and dining establishment. So that concludes my testimony. Is there anything that?
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? All right. From the Los Angeles Police Department, Habib Munoz.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Sergeant Habib Munoz. I'm the officer in charge of the Hollywood Vice Unit and Hollywood Division. I'm here today to speak on the behalf of the Los Angeles Police Department, the Hollywood Division, the Hollywood Vice Unit, and the nearby businesses and residents that have been greatly affected by this location. The Kashmir Nightclub has been operating for the last 2 years that I've been there, and it's been a constant drain of the resources of my unit. In the interest of the welfare of the community and the patrons of the business, as well as the drain of the Los Angeles Police resources and officer safety, the discontinuance of the operation of Kashmir Nightclub and the denial of the continual use permit is absolutely necessary based on many well-documented factors, including some of what you just heard. Those factors include the unwillingness to correct the chronic noncompliance of the previously imposed conditions of the conditional use permit over a 2-year period. The Los Angeles Police Department has documented multiple violations of the current CUP. Some of these violations include the operation as a nightclub, as a strip club instead of a restaurant, where multiple arrests for prostitution were made. The club has also failed to act as a bona fide restaurant, as you heard. They failed to adhere to a prescribed closing time, to employ the required number of security guards, and it also failed to adhere to the condition of requiring patrons to be over 21 years of age after 10 o'clock. Not to mention amplified music and other nuisances to nearby residences. In addition, there has been numerous arrests and criminal investigations. As you heard, probably the most serious was the tragic death of a 20-year-old disc jockey who was not supposed to be at the location to begin with. Some of the other crimes that we've investigated have been sexual assaults, rapes, prostitution, as well as many others. Now, a zoning administration public hearing was held on October 22nd of last year, where the dates, times, and violations were mentioned in great detail. Since that date, 2 vice operations have been conducted at Kashmir Nightclub. The first one was Halloween, October 31st. On that evening, we responded to the location, identified numerous CUP violations, and upon entering the location, one of the managers attempted to hide from the officers in order to avoid making contact. The second one happened on New Year's Eve. On that night, there was 13 CUP violations, 2 arrests of both managers because of those CUP violations, not to mention the fact that we had to clear out the club, and the amount of resources that took on a night like New Year's Eve was tremendous. It is evident that despite all the actions that taken and admonishments given, that the unreasonable and unwarranted unlawful acts by both the property owner and the operator will continue. The operation has been afforded more than enough time and opportunity to take corrective measures and simply chooses to conduct businesses as usual with blatant disregard for the rules, the regulations, laws, and public safety. The quality of life for surrounding residents and tourists from all over the world has been severely impacted and the concerns of multiple agencies ignored. Hollywood Vice has taken aggressive enforcement action against all commercialized, conspicuous, and complained-of activity at Kashmir Nightclub while attempting to keep them in compliance with their licenses, their permits, and the law. The Kashmir Nightclub property owner and operators have no interest or intentions of meeting any kind of standard. This is why the discontinuance of the operation of Kashmir Nightclub and the denial of their conditional use permit is absolutely necessary. Thank you for your time and your consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Dyer.
Thank you. I'm Brian Dyer. I'm a resident of the area, but I'm also the Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council Area 3 representative. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but as such, I take in a lot of complaints. This is a problem club. And just briefly speaking, there's 2 points to this. It's up against our residential area. The entrance is in an alley just off of Hollywood Boulevard, next to a residential apartment building. They don't open according to a lot of Yelp posts, social. This could be hearsay, but a lot of them are saying they don't open until 10:50, till 11 o'clock. So they're queuing up all the way to the street and around the block up until it opens. The building was built in the early part of last century, so it is not soundproof. The club itself has an up-deck patio that opens and closes. It's supposed to be closed. Social media says it's not closing. They were disappointed because it closed at 1 o'clock. If they also hosted District 13, which is an 18 and plus club, meaning that 18 and plus people could come in, but District 13 would bus people in from UC San Diego, UC Irvine, UCLA, and other UC campuses, specifically for underage partying, and then they would also offer table service to 21 and plus. If you go onto Facebook and look at Kashmir Club's advertising, and also go for District 13 and Club Cast. If you look at Kashmir Nightclub's Grammy Awards video.
Your time is up, thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear the buzzer ring. But if you go on, I've got specific areas where you can see people dancing on the floor with drinks. About
It's on the
16,
internet.
18
Got
people.
it, thank you. All right, members, any discussion on this matter? Second. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order.
To Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office, just to clarify, so the decision is to sustain the decision of the ZA and deny the appeal?
Yes, excellent. Excellent, thank you. Now we'll go through items 1 through 4, which we would like to hear together, although we have a few cards. So if you could give us some guidance on how to handle that.
1 through 3, Councilman. I think those are the ones that are interrelated at the same site. So items,
I have 1 through 4 that we'd like to do on consent.
oh, on consent? Okay. Okay.
Can I do that?
I've been advised that we need a public hearing on number 3, Council.
Okay, so
We could do 1, 2, and 4. Okay.
All right, but I have some cards on those.
Sure.
So. All right, so on item number 1, we have Kirkin, Alienkin.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a difficult
My
name.
apologies.
Kirk.
Item
We're
number
on item 1, Councilman. This is a zone change for a 10-unit apartment building, and items 1, 2, and 3 are interrelated.
No.
Kirk Alyanakian, I'm the applicant. My address is 2455 Colorado Boulevard, Suite 400. On this, we sent the letter and requested certain modifications and clarification from the planning staff, and we requested the committee integrates those clarifications into the final report so that we don't have a problem during the permit process. I have a copy of the letter. It's very short and sweet, 2 sentences each. Primarily what it does, the site is across the street, 2 parcels. And the report says that the parking should be provided on the site. And it's 2 projects, which is item number 1 and 2. We requested that it's the same ownership, same mortgage, same management company, same property, but it's across the street, 2 parcels. And building and safety, generally when it goes, they interpret it as the same lot. So we asked a modification to the planning department's report to allow us to provide parking either one side or the other as far as the totality provides the code required parking. And the second thing that we requested, one of the Q conditions says in substantial compliance with the attached plans, which were very preliminary about a year ago, it restricts the height to 31 feet or 32 feet. We requested that the height be allowed to be in compliance with the city code. We cited the section as R3-1 zoning does allow. That's case number 1 and 2, same issues. Thank you.
Excellent.
And
so you had speaker cards on 1, 2, and 3?
Yes.
And
You want me
else?
to continue with 3?
You got a few seconds left.
Okay. You want me to continue with 3?
If you have anything else to say, yes.
Yes. The 3 is the planning department report imposes half a space visitor parking. That is very unusual, especially with the site being in a transit-oriented district, which has a bus station within less than 500 yards. And we requested, that was just plugged in, and when I asked the question as to why I couldn't get an answer, we would like that to be changed to quarter of a space as the standard is for all properties in the zone of R3-1, which is the requested zone change. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
I have copies of the letters. If you don't mind, I can distribute. They're very short, 1 paragraph.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cook, we'd like to approve items 1, 2, and 3 on consent. If there is no discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear from the planning department. Those are significant modifications that the applicant's asking for, so I'd like to have the planning department come up and sort of opine on the testimony and hear from them on items 1 through 3.
Good afternoon, council members. Karen Rishi, Department of City Planning, Neighborhood Valley Project Division, and the staff person on items 1, 2, and 3 today. In terms of the letters that have been submitted from the applicant, the reason that we have put in the Q condition to tie the approval of the zone change to the plans that were submitted as the Exhibit A is when we look at a discretionary action as the planning department, we do base it on the project that's submitted at the time. So we have conditioned the height to be tied to what was submitted on the original plans. In terms of the guest parking, that is something that we have included in the Q conditions based on the input from the community members that we've heard, as well as the current state of the street parking, which can be seen in the photos that I have included in today's presentation that was distributed earlier. So for agenda item number 1, for case APCNV 2015-1044ZC for the property at 11051 through 11055 Arminta Street, staff is recommending approval of the zone change from QRD 1.5 to TQ R3-1, as well as the construction of a new 10-unit apartment building to be integrated with the existing 48-unit apartment building. Recommendation is to approve the requested zone change as well as adopt the mitigated negative declaration with case number ENV 2015-1045 MND, as well as the supplemental findings that have been included in the case file. For agenda item number 2, for case number APC NV 2015-1042 ZC, for the property at 11022 through 11038 Arminta Street. The applicant is requesting a zone change from QRD 1.5-1 and RD 2-1 to TQ R3-1 and the construction of a new 12-unit apartment building to be integrated with the existing 40-unit apartment building. Staff recommendation for this item as well is approval of the zone change request, subject to the recommended T's and Q's, as well as adoption of mitigated negative declaration with case number ENV 2015-1043 MND, as well as the supplemental findings that have been included in the case file. For agenda item number 3, is the public hearing being held right now? Should we speak on that as well, or should I include a separate presentation for that one?
We took cards on item 3.
Okay, so for case number 3, we are holding the limited public hearing. We did send out a 24-day notice in advance of today's hearing date. For that, we have not received any comments from the public or other departments or agencies regarding that project and the renoticing. This project is the request of a zone change from R1-1 to TQ R3-1 and the construction of a new 20-unit apartment building. Staff recommendation is approval of that zone change as well and adoption of the mitigated negative declaration with case number ENV 2015-477 MND, as well as the supplemental findings included in the case file. All 3 zone change requests are consistent with what the general plan land use designation is, and so we're recommending approval of all 3 subject to the T's and Q's. And I'm here for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, the representative from District 7.
Mr. Chair, I would move recommendation per the Planning Department's recommendations. And I don't know if there's any difference between with the testimony of the applicant. It appears that there would be, but I would agree with the Planning Department's recommendations and make that motion.
Excellent. Second. Hearing no objection. No.
You can't do a rebuttal. You don't do a rebuttal.
Yeah, there's no rebuttal. There's no second. Okay. Any objection? No. All right, item 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a...
Hold.
So my question is, did he introduce the modified conditions and did planning accept?
No.
No.
My motion was to adopt the recommendations per the Planning Department presentation and move approval for the project. Projects, 1 through 3.
There are 3 projects. So we have 1 objection, 2 in support of approval. Excellent. Go forward. Item number 4.
Well, Mr. Chair, that begs a question. So the item doesn't pass.
Oh, because we only have 2.
Right. So
Right.
what does that mean?
Well, goes to the council tomorrow without recommendation.
Okay.
So tomorrow without okay. 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a zone change. It's for a commercial corner shopping center in CD3.
All right, I got no cards on item 4. Is there a staff report? I see someone coming.
Good afternoon, Jenna Monterosa with Department of City Planning. I don't have a staff report. This project went through City Planning Commission. There's been no objections. It was recommended, I'm sorry, let me reintroduce it. Project's located at 7050 North Topanga Canyon Boulevard in Council District 3, Canoga Park, Winnetka, Woodland Hills, West Hills Neighborhood Council. Oh, West Hills Community Plan, excuse me. The project is a 76,000 square foot commercial corner shopping center. Project includes 3 buildings. One's a self-storage, one's a proposed drive-through coffee shop, and another is a restaurant. The project was in request of a zone change, and excuse me, and the City Planning Commission recommended approval of the zone change as filed. And all other requests were approved, and so the zone change request is the only item before you at this time.
Questions?
Move to approve per the planning department's recommendations.
We have a second. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Thank you. Item 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a hardship exemption application. It's in CD4, and it's filed by Stephen and Julie Metz.
All right. I have Julia Duncan. Council District 4 has submitted a card. I don't have any other cards on that item.
Hi, council members. Thank you for having me here today. Julia Duncan, Councilman David Rue's office. Stephen and Julie Metz are requesting this hardship exemption for an addition of 598 square feet to an existing single-family residence of 1,500 square feet, basically adding one bedroom and one bathroom to the rear of the dwelling. They would maintain the historical craftsman style of the home itself and the existing neighborhood overall. They've garnered letters of support from all of their abutting neighbors, and we respectfully request that you approve their exemption application.
Any questions? Item 6. Just heard a representative from CD4. Hardship exemption application for expansion of a single-family home located on Curson Avenue. Is there a second? Yeah. Thanks. Hearing no objection, we'll approve this item and move to item number 7.
Again, item 7 is a hardship exemption application, and this is in CD5.
Excellent. And our applicant is Shirley Naufar.
Yes, this is, I'm Shirley Naufar. I'm here on behalf of my son, Sepper Naufar, and Yal Naufar, his wife. The house that they have, they just they did a new roof with the existing material, and because there's a adjacent of the high rises next to the house, they don't have any natural sun or natural heat from the sun in the house. So while they're putting the new roof, they add a couple of solar tubes and skylight to bring the natural light and heat to the house. The local architectural supervising committee and Homely Westwood Property Owner Association evaluated the property and the roof and found that the home adhered to existing scale and character of the surrounding neighborhood. Furthermore, the Los Angeles Planning Department reported title Property Owner's Right to Sunlight afforded a reasonable guarantee that his right to sunlight and use of solar energy will be interfered. So we given notice to all the neighborhood. I don't know if there's any objection to have the solar tubes and the skylight, which are not big items, are very obscure items on the roof, which is not visible from the street either.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Is there a representative from Council District 5?
Good afternoon. My name is Noah Molstein. I'm the Director of Planning for Councilmember Paul Koretz's office. Our office has reviewed this case several times. I worked hand in hand with the applicant, and we've reviewed it over and over again, and we just we don't find that there are any merits that rise to the level of exempting this. I mean, we have the ICO in place for a reason. I mean, this is a very sensitive neighborhood, and we are in the midst of establishing that HPOZ, and we just want to make sure that that everything is maintained during the interim. And so at this point, we are we don't approve of the ICO exemption. Thank you. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you. Is there a staff report on this?
There is none.
There's not?
No.
Excellent.
It's simply an application.
Simply application, okay. Any questions or comments, members?
It seems to me that the ICO is in place, but that there are provisions for exemption, so I don't know that that's what the ICO is exactly. It's an interim control. Entities come forth for a exemption to that, so I don't know.
Typically, the committee defers to the council member of the district.
So is that a motion? Do I hear a motion to deny? Motion to deny?
Second.
Second. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Item number 8.
So to approve, right?
To deny the.
To deny?
Deny the appeal.
To deny the appeal. Okay. And then the last, item 8 rather, it's another hardship exemption application. This one is by Martha Hernandez, and it's in CD4.
Is there a representative from the applicant? All right.
We've been working with Martha for some time. Julia Duncan, Councilman Rue's office, so I'd like to speak on her behalf. They're requesting an exemption from the Larchmont Heights area. They've lived in the home for 20 years. They have 4 children, and their family's growing. They wouldn't be able to afford to buy a larger home or even a home in the area at the current values. They're requesting an addition of 836 square feet for 2 bedrooms. They've also garnered the support and letters of support from all of their abutting neighbors. They intend to retire in the home, and they need the additional space for their growing family. So we respectfully request that you approve the exemption.
To accept the.
Hold on, I got one speaker. Okay. Before we take that motion. Thank you. I have one speaker. This is Los Angeles, so this could either be Christine Rangel or Christine Rangel. Or something else.
You can say it either way. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members of the committee and the council. As the city looks to update the baseline mansionization ordinance shortly, we ask you to consider what the current ICO has done. The fact that we have multiple instances of homeowners looking to do something as simple as install skylights, add a bedroom, bathroom, or remodel their kitchen is indicative of a poorly crafted rule. Do we really want homeowners to have to go through this process and have a hearing before Plum for activities like this? We shouldn't unfairly require Angelenos to come before your committee on items that are fairly minor, items that are not creating mansions in their communities. The city was too restrictive in implementing the interim control ordinance. The ordinance is flawed because the 120% rule is not equitable to property owners. This rule should be abolished. Otherwise, homeowners face an unintended consequence of a bad policy. We support the BMO being updated, but we need to look to ways to streamline the process and not create more regulatory delays. We appreciate the efforts the committee has made in this regard, such as approving the House LA motions and continuing to work with us to streamline permitting.
Excellent, thank you.
I'd make a motion to accept the application.
Is there a second? Second. Excellent. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Item 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a Cultural Heritage Commission report to include the Edinburgh Bungalow Court in CD5 as a historic cultural monument.
Excellent. Yes.
Hi. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Harris Dawson and members of the committee. I'm Shannon Ryan with the Department of City Planning's Office of Historic Resources. Before you today is the Edinburgh Bungalow Court Historic Cultural Monument application. This is a unique nomination in that it was initiated by the Director of Planning, an action that is rarely taken. As you are aware, the nomination was initiated amidst pending demolition. The director initiated the nomination because he felt that the property was an excellent example of a bungalow court in Hollywood and warranted review by the Cultural Heritage Commission and City Council. Upon review of the nomination against the 4 criteria of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance, the Cultural Heritage Commission found that the property meets 2 of the 4 criteria for designation. The Commission found that the bungalow court reflects the broad cultural, politic, economic, or social history of the nation, state, or community for its association with the rapid development of Hollywood and its surrounding areas in the 1920s. They also found that the bungalow court embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type specimen inherently valuable for a study of a period, style, or method of construction, as an example of the bungalow court multifamily housing type in Hollywood. Based on these findings, the 5-member Cultural Heritage Commission unanimously recommended declaring the property a historic cultural monument. Katie Horak with Architectural Resources Group, who volunteered her time to prepare the nomination, is available to provide brief background on the nomination. She has a speaker card in the pack. And I, too, and Ken Bernstein am available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. There are a number of speaker cards on this matter. It looks like a lot of neighbors came out today to talk about this, so I'll call you up in groups of 3. Bill Cooper, Liza Gerberding, Adrian Scott Fine.
Hi, I'm Bill Cooper. I'm actually here, I'm on the board of the Society for Preservation of Downtown Los Angeles, and I'm also president of the Downtown Real Estate Association. Los Angeles is seeing a much needed, tremendous growth and development, which both of the groups I represent support. However, we are also passionate about preserving our cultural heritage at the same time. Now is the time, actually it's past time for the city to take a good look at what they are approving for development and for destruction. At the very least, you should weigh heavily the recommendations from experts and organizations like the Cultural Heritage Commission, the LA Conservancy, and the Department of Historic Resources.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liza Gerberding. I'm on the Planning and Land Use Committee of the Mid-City West Council. I'm here personally, and there is a community impact statement, I believe, on the record for that. But I'm here as a stakeholder in support of the designation of the Edinburgh Bungalow Court as a historic cultural monument, as has been unanimously recommended by the Cultural Heritage Commission. It's a lovely part of our neighborhood, and we would hate to see it go. So I encourage you to support the HCM application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Adrian Scott Fine with the Los Angeles Conservancy. We're here in support of this nomination. You're going to hear a number of issues today in addition to the eligibility of this resource, which we're working on. The Conservancy is working with all sides on this issue to look for preservation alternatives, viable alternatives, and hopefully a win-win preservation solution. But we don't believe we're there yet. And despite a request to the owners, we're still waiting for a true second opinion on the structural analysis and costs from a qualified consultant that we trust. And while structural conditions are important, and the Conservancy does not take this lightly, the matter before Plum today is relatively straightforward. That's whether or not to support the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation for HCM status. And on that question alone, we strongly believe Edinburgh Bungalow Court meets the criteria and is eligible as an admittedly modest yet vitally important and increasingly rare and threatened iconic building type in Los Angeles. The city's historic cultural monument system already has a built-in relief valve system should it be necessary to address the case of structural and or financial viability issues. So we ask you to let this proceed and support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ashore, Mr. Steinbeck, and Mr. Simonian.
Hi,
good afternoon. I live in this district, and I'm a homeowner for the last 40 years.
Pardon me, can you state your name when you start, just
My
in
name is
case I didn't,
Mamdou Ashur.
in case I didn't get it right? Thank you.
You got it?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and I live in this district for the last 40 years. I'm a homeowner, and I'm a voter. I voted every election. And what I think about this property is it's not worthy of a historic designation. It's a kid building built from catalog like thousands of other buildings in Los Angeles. As you heard from a qualified expert, it was never built properly. After 40 years of neglect, it cannot be saved. A designation is not going to fix a building. And you are, by designating this property, you are abusing the preservation process, risking impairing an ordinance that is used for saving great buildings across the city. The people who support designation are simply battling new development and new housing. It's irresponsible in our current housing crisis.
Thank you. Thank you. That's your time. Thank you.
My name is Jacob Steinbeck. I live in the 5th District, and my family went to Fairfax High. I shop on Fairfax. I've seen the building, and the thing that bothers me the most is the decrepit old building, if you gentlemen have seen it, is on a secret list for historical buildings. This is not the CIA, the FBI, or the NSA, and I can't understand how there could be a secret list for historical buildings. So if I wanted to buy a house in Los Angeles, I buy a house, I pay the $1 million, and then the city declares that on their secret list as a historical building, I'm stuck and losing half of my money. I can't comprehend this, and I really resent it. Thank you, though, for listening to me.
Thank you.
Council, thank you for hearing me. My name is Carl Simonian, and I'm here. I used to live very close to this building and walk my dog by it quite frequently. I've subsequently moved a little further away, and quite frankly, it's falling apart, and it's very similar to many, many, many bungalows within the Los Angeles area. I don't see the historic designation, although I'm not an expert. It seems to me that there are many examples of this very same thing throughout Los Angeles, and it seems to be something that is, quite frankly, I had a dog and I was scared to walk by it. It's not something that I think it can be saved or was worth saving. It was not in such great condition, and they're not so great now, I don't believe. In any case, I have moved a little further away. I don't think it's a fair or proper use of the historic designation, given the fact that there are many other buildings like this in the neighborhood. And I believe that some of the neighborhood opposition comes because they are afraid of the actual development that might help them in their neighborhood and help them through into a better neighborhood, and don't really understand that this is a development that would help the neighborhood and not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Lynn Stroitsqua, Arlene Ablo, Greg Sutter.
Thank you, council members, for listening to us today. Basically,
Can you say your name? I'm sorry. Everybody, can you say your name? Thanks.
Lynn Struck. A couple of things I just want to mention real quick, that the building, it makes two of the criteria for the historic designation. One of them being that it allows, as a neighbor, just to be able to enjoy other people around the neighborhood. You've got a patio that as you're walking by, you can hear, people playing, kids playing, and musicians playing throughout the, what we used to, in that building. And also it allows for affordability. It is it's a very affordable building. And anyways, I just finally, I'd like to support the designation of the Edinboro Court as a historic monument. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Arlene Abelo. I'll just read what I wrote. As somebody who walks throughout the neighborhood, I live right down the street from this court. I have seen what the teardowns have done to the complexion and vitality of once charming areas. They have created soulless, charmless, monolithic environments which dilute the historic vitality of our city. Years from now, they will be eyesores and will remind us of the terrible mistakes that were made in allowing such, quote, development to take hold. I grew up in New York City and remember the campaigns to save places like Grand Central Station, which were slated to be demolished. Now it is an iconic representation of New York City, and everyone hails the efforts of Conservancy. We need to do that in small ways as well for the neighborhoods we live in and love. This is a small matter in the big scheme of things. Thank you.
We've got Christine, come on. Behind you is Christine Rango, Heather Fox, and Mark Thompson.
Hello, council members. My name is Greg Sutter. I live at 740 Edinburgh, 2 doors from the bungalow court. And I just want to say that, the developers call this the designation unanimously by the Cultural Heritage Commission as an obscure city process. Well, it's hardly that. I mean, it was carefully wrought. You heard Shannon's description of what this bungalow court represents. I've done a lot of research on the bungalow court in the Los Angeles area. There are only 10 bungalow courts that have historic cultural monument designation. And each one has a distinct kind of style. This is an example. Edinburgh Bungalow Court is an example of what they call vernacular architecture. Yes, it wasn't like Frank Lloyd Wright that designed it, but it was like it was a craftsman, a builder who understood, the times, and I won't go through all of the description of the history, and that's all written there.
Thank
you.
But
save the Edinburgh Bungalow Court, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. Christine from the BIA. The BIA supports the concept of historic designation in order to maintain some of the historic character and charm which is uniquely Los Angeles. However, as we know, LA is in a housing crisis. LA's housing element claims that the city is 82,000 units short of meeting its need before 2021. Despite this need, we see more instances of infill CEQA abuse and historic designation after a piece of property has been bought with the intent to develop. To designate at this stage is clearly intended to restrict the building of new homes under the guise of historic. This action is simply another tool used by neighborhoods resistant to change to stop building in LA. This piece of property was bought fairly by developers with the intent to build new homes. The buildings were not deemed historic prior to being purchased. To be deemed historic 6 months after the 30-day notice was given and the demo permit was applied for is challenging the rules of the game at halftime. This is simply a case of what is fair and what is not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Heather Fox. I am a community advocate behind saving Edinburgh Bungalow Court. I don't need to tell you why it is historic. You have all of the information in front of you. As you already know, we have full support from OHR, CHC, and LA Conservancy, to name a few. I have walked the neighborhoods for months, garnering hundreds of petition signatures, and I can assure you that this is what the community wants. I understand that you are elected and that you need to look at the big picture. But I hope that you will honor and respect and agree with the community's wishes and with the government agencies that have come before you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brian Harris, Victor Omelzinko, and Francisco Martinez.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Thompson. I'm an immediate neighbor. I'm also a general contractor. I would just like to offer a brief statement in support of the designation regarding feasibility. Anecdotally, as a contractor, when times are good, contractors can afford to pick and choose what jobs they take, and a lot of times the reasons they give for not taking a job sound very similar to what the developer has on their reports. But when times are lean, and you have to take every job that comes your way to make ends meet, you miraculously find ways to complete and take all those other jobs through ingenuity, through good planning, willpower, and necessity. I think the only thing that gets in the way of restoring a building is lack of will. I think when a project is necessary and you have the willpower, I think the rest is easy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Harris. I'm a neighboring property owner on a diagonal behind this property. Edinburgh Bungalow Court is a historic resource. It's affirmed by Survey LA. It's affirmed by Mid-City West Neighborhood Council. It's affirmed by the Cultural Heritage Commission. It is a very, very important integrative architectural piece to the fabric of our neighborhood, and that is affirmed by over 200 residents who signed petitions all within 3 blocks from the bungalows. There are protective measures such as CEQA, which help protect communities. When those measures fail to be a strong enough gatekeeper, abuse as we talk about, when plans are changed, communities must work together to fight for what's best for the community. I ask that you honor the recommendations and process and declare this a historic monument and make it the 11th bungalow court in all of Los Angeles. It's a signature architectural type and only one person.
Thank you.
Don't push me. I'm just kidding. Hey, my name is Franco Martinez, and I live a few steps away from the bungalows. I've lived there nearly 6 years now, and I concur with anybody who's been up here to discuss. I was at the other hearing when it was voted that it should be designated a historical and cultural monument of the city of LA. And that's all I have to say. I hope that you would vote
Thank you.
for it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Victor Omolchenko, and I came down your fine bike lane along Sunset Boulevard to Cesar Chavez, and now here from West Hollywood. I'm here representing the West Hollywood Preservation Alliance, and we are joining our colleague organization, the Los Angeles Conservancy, in urging you to designate 750 to 756 and a half Edinboro Avenue in Los Angeles, zip 90046, as a historic cultural monument in the city of Los Angeles. This is a pristine example of Spanish mission-style architecture. For over 92 years, it has served as shelter for lower, middle-class, working-class people. And at a time when Los Angeles and the whole county and other cities like mine are addressing the issues of neighborhood compatibility as well as affordability, it's very, very important to be able to preserve a vestige of something of the past that is so evocative of Southern California living, especially this Southern California style courtyard. Please designate the Edinboro Bungalow.
Thank you. We have Amy Gallaudet, Rob Larkin, Keith Nakata, Rodrigo Rodarte, and Josh Pfeffer.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Gallaudet. I'm a landlord of many older buildings. I used to own a building at 714 North Edinburgh, the same block. I would walk past it and just marvel at it. I know why Survey LA chose this property because it is unique. I am a member of 4 homeowner associations and on the board of Beverly Wilshire Homeowners. We are strongly supporting this designation. I ask that you honor the unanimous verdict of the Cultural Heritage Commission and support this also. All homeowner and tenants' rights groups support refurbishing vintage properties as opposed to the destruction of our city's history.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon. Keith Nakata. I'm on the Mid-City West Community Council Land Use Committee. I am proud today to personally support the historic designation of the Edinburgh Bungalows as a historic cultural monument in the city of Los Angeles. I'm very proud to join the Mid-City West Community Council, Councilman Koretz, the Cultural Heritage Commission, as well as the Los Angeles Conservancy, along with the neighbors of this structure in supporting the designation. This property was identified by Survey LA as a possible city, state, and national candidate for designation. I'm proud that our committee brought this to light. The property is a unique design combining Spanish colonial, Mediterranean, and mission revival, and also provides rent-stabilized affordable housing. I'm saddened the developers who have been irresponsible in allowing holes to be made in the roof and cutting of the power lines, as well as attempting demolition instead of preserving this qualified cultural monument. Please support the designation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rodrigo Rodarte. I have a lot of history in this neighborhood. My grandparents bought their first house a few blocks away from the site in 1947. My parents and their siblings went to Fairfax High School. I lived in this neighborhood for several years after college and worked at a nonprofit working on advocacy for young professionals. I believe that to designate this building historic is a travesty. I think that it's an eyesore. I am all for historic preservation. I understand the rich history in this neighborhood. It's a very important neighborhood to me. I think that we need to save what makes sense, and we need to build on what doesn't make sense, and this building does not make sense. I would ask you for whom you are trying to preserve the neighborhood, because it's certainly not for young professionals like me who have nowhere to live. We're running out of housing, and young professionals are moving out of the city, out of the state. There's not enough development. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Josh Pfeffer. I'm an engineering geologist. I've been doing consulting work for over 20 years in the city of Los Angeles, and I've inspected thousands of structures as part of forensic investigations for rehab and for new development. I'm the geotechnical engineer on the 40-story high-rise at 10,000 Santa Monica and worked with the city of Los Angeles on the fault issues there. These buildings, the existing foundation systems are deficient and do not meet standard building code requirements for reinforcement, depth, and concrete strength. The underlying soil is expansive and has loose fill, and the foundations have been affected. There's extensive distress to both the foundations and the buildings themselves. There's no practical repair that can be done on these buildings. The existing foundations need to be completely replaced, and there's really no way to do that with this system. On top of all this, these buildings are dilapidated, and it's our opinion that they are unfit for housing and should be red tagged.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rob Larkin, and I lived in the building for 5.5 years until this past August. And definitely others can speak a lot more knowledgeably and eloquently than me about the architectural history and all those kind of concerns. I'll just say I lived there for a long time, and it's absolutely livable. It was a special place. When I was searching for apartments, something about it jumped out at me. I don't know anything about architectural history, but the style of it really appealed to me. As far as livability, one thing I can definitely say for sure is there are clearly a lot of apartment buildings throughout Los Angeles that are in much worse shape and frankly cost a lot more to rent. So that's what I can comment on. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. We have Abigail Smith, Guy Perini, David Funk.
Hi, I'm Abigail Smith. I am a resident of the community, and I'm here to oppose the historic designation. My perspective is a design perspective. I've worked on numerous architecture and interior projects, and when I look at that building, I don't see any architectural or design merit. There are so many buildings in this city that deserve preservation and that are getting knocked down every day, and this building should not be the focus of our efforts. We should be focusing on the ones that are by really historically relevant architects and really historically relevant details. And this building has none of those. If you look at the photographs, you can see for yourself that the proportions are all wrong. I mean, I don't want to get into a creative critique, but it's not built in a way that is relevant in any sort of design historical context.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Guy Panini. I'm one of the owners of the property. I appreciate your time and listening to what we have to say, as well as reading our material. One of the things that I can share with you is that we have worked diligently with many people in the community. We certainly see this as a complicated issue, and we have worked very closely with the Conservancy in the last couple of weeks, and we hope to in the future to see if there is a preservation strategy. I do want to say that in particular, Mr. Larkin, who's here, who's a former tenant, we purchased the building just about last year, so we're not responsible for the 40 years of neglect that this building has seen. But in Mr. Larkin's apartment, which had floors that were about this kind of pitch, and which maybe had an old refrigerator and maybe had an old bookcase, there was a condition where the floor and the wall were separated by a gap of at least 4 inches, and where the landlords over the years had simply just pasted baseboard over it, pretending like the problem didn't exist. So it has its charm, but it's also an inherently unsafe place to live. We didn't want people living there. We think it's a building that should be redeveloped. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Funk. I'm a licensed structural engineer in California, representing John Labib and Associates Structural Engineers. I've worked for the last 13 years in Los Angeles on a lot of historic preservation projects. This would be the most challenging one that I would have worked on. If we had to preserve it, the foundations, like Mr. Pfeffer was saying, have completely been built in a clay expansive soil, and the good soil is 5 feet down below. We would need to excavate down 5 feet below these buildings and somehow preserve them in their current condition. They're built with materials and connections that are 90 years old, and the buildings would not survive this process, unfortunately. So the buildings, honestly, at this point should not be occupied. It'd be a hazard to human life, and in order to retrofit them, it would be a serious undertaking. I did walk all of the buildings, crawled underneath them. The buildings have been shimmed even in the past just to re-level the floors, and they're currently still way out of level. The roofs are damaged, the walls are damaged. In order to rebuild the building, the walls would have to come off, the plaster would have to be redone, it'd have to be brought up to code. It would be a brand new building.
Excellent, thank you. Yana Udovic, Nav Chakravarti, Elisa Pastar, and Dr. Jerabez.
Yana Udelovic, as a former tour guide in Italy, Russia, and Los Angeles, I deeply care for historical preservation. It is a mockery of this very important process to designate this unsound structurally, debilitating, extremely, without any integrity building as such. It's not a historical landmark. It is a historical hazard. And who is going to pay for this unfeasible, economically unfeasible rehabilitation? Eminent domain? I am a resident of this neighborhood for 36 years. It's not Spalding Square, it's not Windsor Square. There is no historical content whatsoever. It's not a battle for preservation, it's a war against development. And as an immigrant from the Soviet Union, I want to caution you that placing a burden of providing what everybody is calling affordable housing on the private shoulders is unsustainable. If you designate this unworthy specimen as a historical building, landmark, you will have to designate every single one remaining in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the council. My name is Nav Chakravarti. I live across the street at 741, 743 North Edinburgh. It's a duplex on the same street. My building is also built in the 1920s, and it's a bungalow style, built the similar style. The street and the neighborhood have a distinct historic look and feel, and I think Edinburgh Bungalow Court is a part of that historic feel, and I strongly support and hope you will designate this as a historic cultural monument. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, honorable members. My name is Elisa Pastor. I'm an attorney with Glazer Weil, and I'm here on behalf of the property owners today. We urge you to either deny the designation or at the very least pass it on without recommendation. Historic designation is not warranted, and our historic expert is going to come up after me and talk a little bit about that. If you designate this building on those grounds, you're going to have to designate everything in Los Angeles. It's far too broad, and there's not substantial evidence to support the designation. You've also heard from our technical experts that you basically have to rebuild the building to quote-unquote save it. So what you're doing is you're asking the developer to basically rebuild a replica of the building.
So if they were to do that and rebuild this replica, we would then have units that would be one-bedroom units of about 535 square feet that would cost $1 million. That's not affordable housing. It's not historic preservation. It's unfair, and it's a taking of private property. The Survey LA has been used. May I have one more minute since I'm here on behalf of the property owner? Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Margarita Jerebeck, Director of Historic Resources with PCR. I have over 25 years of experience in historic preservation consulting. This property only minimally meets the eligibility threshold, which was set too low. Survey LA claims the bungalow courts are a rare property type. However, PCR identified 74 other similar bungalow courts in Los Angeles, and many more exist. Furthermore, rarity is not a part of the city's eligibility criteria for designation. As PCR demonstrated, there are several other better examples in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. The property has a tenuous connection to the Hollywood entertainment industry at best. Our research showed that it was built during the 1920s population boom. It was constructed from a kit, and it bears striking resemblance to examples of kit houses published in catalogs during the 1920s. Numerous modifications of the years taken together have had an adverse cumulative impact on the property's integrity, with poor repairs, numerous window and door replacements, resizing of window openings, damaged stucco, etc. Rehabilitation.
Thank you. That's your time. Aaron Green.
Honorable Council members, my name is Aaron Green. I'm with the AFRIA Consulting Group. I represent the property owner in this case. We would request that you continue it for 2 weeks so that we may further work with the council office, the community, and the LA Conservancy to try to bring this to a place where everybody agrees. I will say, though, I think there's some important information to be put on the record, which is, as it exists today, this building's not a historic building. Nobody cared about this building until my client purchased it. Nobody had heard about this building until my client purchased it. There was no attempt to designate it or to preserve it in any way, shape, or form. And the real only justification that we're hearing here today is that this building was on Survey LA. This building was on an unpublished list of Survey LA that included thousands of buildings across the city. And if we designate this building today, because it is on Survey LA, that means that de facto, thousands more buildings across the city in every council district will be deemed and de facto historic properties without any process whatsoever. It's a dangerous precedent to set. There's no justification for designating this property a historic property, and I ask that you continue this for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from the council office?
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Faisal Al-Sari here for Councilmember Koretz. This was definitely a unique situation for us. The council member continues to be concerned with some of the statements of the applicant regarding structural integrity. However, there is a mechanism within the department's role here to address those concerns. That said, the council member would like to support in moving the department's recommendation to designate this historical monument and would urge your support as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from members?
My understanding is that there's an interest in having a 2-week continuance with the Conservancy and the owners.
You might want to press your button so you're on the record.
Yeah. Here you go.
My understanding is that there's an interest between the Conservancy and the owners to have a 2-week continuance. Is that correct? Is that correct? Yes? Can we do that then?
So there's a motion to continue the matter? Yes, sir, Mr. Clerk.
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. Yes, the council can extend the time to act by 15 days. I believe tomorrow we reach the 90-day mark, and so if the recommendation from this body to council tomorrow is to continue, then council can act on that recommendation and extend the time by 15 days.
Okay.
Great.
Right, and
So
the,
moved.
the,
You seem to be pregnant with input.
I was just going to add that the administrative code mentions that the council can extend it by 15 days by motion for good cause.
Excellent. So are you making such a motion?
So moved.
Excellent. Is there a second? There's no second? So there's no recommendation?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. That motion has to be done in council, not in committee. So I could move the report to council tomorrow to request the extension.
Right, I think the committee is voting here what their recommendation is going to be, correct?
No, I think Councilman Cedillo mentioned that he was in support of the 15-day continuance.
Yes.
So hence, the recommendation of the committee would be to include that recommendation in the committee report.
But it seems like there isn't sufficient agreement.
Well, there would be no motion required if that was the case. We can move it as a committee report.
So just to
No
get,
recommendation then.
so no
Recommendation
recommendation.
would be to continue it.
Okay.
Here comes more help. Come on up.
Ken Bernstein, Department of City Planning. It seems to me you could move and second and adopt a motion to continue the matter for 15 days for good cause to extend the time period, or you may take up the nomination on the merits and entertain a motion to either approve or disapprove the designation and have that be the committee report.
It seems to me that there's a motion and a second, but there's insufficient agreement to.
So theoretically, I guess you could do a minority and majority report.
There was no second. Was there a second?
I don't know. What was the vote?
I second.
Oh, you second?
I second it, yeah.
Did you agree with Councilman Cedillo?
I seconded his motion.
Okay, then there is a majority, so.
But we.
You don't have enough vote. But they all agree.
Excuse me.
Oh, you didn't agree?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Do you object?
You object?
I'm a no.
Yeah, so there is insufficient agreement.
Okay. So then it goes as without recommendation to the council.
Good. Excellent. Anything else for the good of the order?
Oh, and the item is in council tomorrow, by the way.
Excellent.
Public comment.
The public comment box is clear.
Yep.
So we can adjourn?
Yes.
Excellent. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Wow, you guys are going against council offices.
Oh, I thought that.
Well, you just did it twice. And then you asked for deference and going with the developer over CD6. You almost went with the people over CD5, and now you went against CD5. Well, that's not a rumor, it's confirmed. That's pretty bold. 5 and 6, wow.